Hello everyone, and welcome to Molehill Mountain episode 187, an episode number that shows proof positive, as long as you don't count episode 0, that this podcast has been going longer than Super Podcast Action Committee. Hooray! Internet cookies for all. So, I'm Andrew Eisen, happy to have you here. So, let me once again regale you with my adventures in game curation. So for the past month or so, I've been streaming a game every Sunday at noon Pacific Standard Time, and you're all welcome to attend. It's been fun. So during the week, I look through my extensive backlog of unplayed games, and I pick something to pay up to play for the weekend. And I went through a few games this week. The first one I thought about, which I actually spelled completely incorrectly in my notes. And did the stream just die? No, it's still there. Alright, so the first game I considered was a game called Serial Cleaner, which is about a dude who lives with his mom, whose job it is to clean up murder scenes. So if you murder somebody or some buddies and you don't want the police to catch you, you call the serial cleaner, who will show up and clean up the blood and remove evidence and dispose of the bodies for you. Even though the cops are already there and have tagged all the evidence, you just kind of wash the carpets while they turn around and make off with the bodies when they're not looking. It's a puzzle game. You have an arena, and you have little points you have to get to, and you have guards with vision cones that you have to avoid on your way to the interactable bits. So you have to get in without getting caught, grab the stuff, and get out without getting caught. Fine setup for a game. I played like maybe 5 chapters of it, and I didn't really feel it was that great to stream. It's okay. The aesthetic is fine. The main crux of the gameplay works. I just didn't feel... It's a bit too puzzly. I think too much of the game would be me staring at the map, watching the guards' patrol routes for 5 minutes until I get an understanding of the layout and the patrol routes so that I can sneak between them. I think it would be a little dull to watch, so I decided not to go with that one. It's an okay game, though. Not great, but it does have a nice sense of humor. Not all the humor works, but I think a lot of the aesthetic works. I like some of the secret costumes and stuff, so not a bad little game. The next game I looked at was Euro Truck Simulator 2, which I didn't for a moment think I'd enjoy, but I thought might actually be funny as long as it wasn't completely boring. So I fired up Euro Truck Simulator 2, and you might be wondering, why the hell do you have that game? Honestly, I don't know. It probably came... It was either free or it came in a charity bundle at some point. It's where most of these games came from. So Euro Truck Simulator 2 is actually... It's not like Desert Bus, which is just drive your bus down a desert road. Euro Truck Simulator 2 is actually a truck simulator that takes place in Europe, and it's the second one. So it's a well-named game. It is definitely a simulator. In fact, the way it seems to want you to play is with a controller and a mouse and a keyboard. So you use the control stick to turn the wheel of the truck. You use the mouse to look around, and you use various keys on the keyboard to shift, change your viewpoints, and futz around with the navigator app. so that you know what your route is and where you're going. And I think the idea is trucks are big and complicated, and you're reaching all over the place, and trucks are actually just trucks. They have steering wheels and pedals. It's not that complicated. I think driving a truck, or I think operating Euro Truck Simulator 2 is probably more difficult than actually operating a truck. But it's certainly interesting. And the game, its main loop is build your own trucking business. So you create a character, and you create and you get your own place, and then you have to buy your own truck, and then you can kit out your truck, and then you hire crew, and then you get a bigger place. And the way you get money to do that is by hauling crap back and forth. I'm really bad at it. I can't park worth a damn, and I'm utterly terrible at constantly switching around, because I have to... The lighting in here is terrible, so if I want to hit the 1 key or the 2 or 3 key on my keyboard, it's really dark and I can't see it, so I'd constantly be doing that to see where the hell the buttons are. So I don't think that would make a good game to stream. So I tried Binary Domain, which is a game I've wanted to play for a while. And one thing it does that I did not know is it has voice commands. So your characters will often ask you, "Hey, how are you?" And you can say, "I'm fine," or "Kiss my foot," or something. Or you can hold down one of the shoulder buttons and select a response out of a menu if you're tired of yelling into the microphone because it doesn't understand what you're saying. It looks like it could be a fun little game. I like the characters. I like their personality. Unfortunately, while I can use a controller for this game, so far as I've seen, there are almost no controller options. You cannot invert the Y-axis on the camera stick, and I just cannot get used. I literally cannot navigate the world with the vertical axis backwards on the camera. I can't do it. Also, there's no option to adjust the control stick sensitivity, and it's just all over the place. So I honestly just cannot navigate that game. I might actually have an easier time controlling that game with a keyboard and mouse. That's how bad it is. So once we're all collectively no longer suffering under such scary financial uncertainty, maybe I'll pick up the console version of Binary Domain and play it there. At least, maybe that would be a bad idea. Maybe I should look into if it controls exactly the same on console. But the game only costs like $15 right now, so we'll see. So one game I wanted to do a while ago was Enslaved Odyssey to the West, but I couldn't get it to work. So I spent a little time futzing around with what is the name of the little program? It's a little middleware program thing. It is called DS for Windows. And I futzed around with that a little bit because the controller options for the PC version of Enslaved are for the Xbox controller. So DS4 Windows is helping translate those to the corresponding buttons on my PlayStation 4 pad. So it actually works now. I can play it. It's a little hard looking at the button prompts. When it says X, it actually means the button on the left. It's where the Y button would be on the... It's not the X button on the PlayStation controller. That's the one on the bottom. It's not the X button on Nintendo's controller. That's the one on the top. On the Xbox, it's the one on the left. So it's a little difficult to wrap your head around the button prompts, figuring out which button they actually want you to push. But I played the first couple of minutes of the game. It's very Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. Lots of climbing all over the environment and smacking bad guys with a stick. No time rewind feature that I've seen so far. And that's definitely Andy Serkis doing the performance for the main character dude that you control. So that's fun. So tomorrow, noon Pacific Standard Time, we will be playing Enslaved Odyssey to the West. So hope you'll show up for that. I think it will be fun. So that was my adventure in game curation this week. Last week we played Hand of Fate, which I put a little bit more time into, and I am at the last encounter in the Cabinet of Encounters. No idea if there's a second cabinet or a final boss once that's beaten, but I really like that game. And I'm really looking forward to digging into the sequel at some point. Very curious to see what they do with the sequel. Is it just the same game with new encounter and equipment cards, or is it a dice game instead of a card game? Maybe it's got like a spinny game of life wheel, like a roulette wheel or something. Hopefully it's got a character creator, because I don't really like the design of the character you're stuck with in Hand of Fate 1. It's just kind of a dorky looking dude. Even Euro Truck Simulator 2 has a character creator. It doesn't have a character creator. It has a very generous list of character profiles or icons. I mean, there's got to be 100 of them or so. So I for Euro Truck Simulator 2, I picked a really mean-looking woman. A woman who's like, "I am going to transport your product." She seems damn serious about trucking. Unfortunately, I only played the game for like 20 minutes, and probably won't play it anymore. But it was interesting finding out what that game actually is. So anyway, Hand of Fate's good. If you see it for a good price, I'd recommend it. I think it's a lot of fun. I was really thrown by the fact I thought it was just a card game. I didn't realize it was. I thought the card game would abstract the adventure and battles. No, the card game abstracts the adventure and journey, but not the battles. The battles you actually take part in. You literally hit skeletons in the head with a stick. So you do have to be... If all you can do is... If your level of gaming is like solitaire, this game's probably going to frustrate you. You actually need the hand-eye coordination to do real-time 3D combat, which I wasn't expecting from the game. Luckily, I'm mildly competent enough to pull that off, so it didn't really bother me. Chaos says, anyone grab the free Pac-Man game? Yeah, Pac-Man... actually, I have it sitting right next to me. Pac-Man Championship Edition 2. Is available for free on PS4, Steam. Oh, you've got it written right here. The PlayStation, Xbox, and Steam. It's free until, I think, like May 4th, May 15th, for the next little while. So, hey, free Pac-Man, go get it. On the PlayStation, we're actually here. So let's talk about Journey. Another game that's free right now on the PlayStation anyway, the PlayStation 4, is Journey, a game that came out years ago by that game company. You know the one. That game company. You know what I'm talking about. That game company. You know. It's that game company. I agree with Chaos. Journey is one of those really highly lauded art games. It's a little bit atypical in its presentation and how it plays, especially for such a popular, well-regarded game. But it seemed to strike a chord with gamers, and the general reception was very, very positive. People just found it a short but incredibly gorgeous and engrossing game to just sit down and lose yourself in for the 2 hours or so that it lasts. It's a fairly short game from what I understand. I think it's boring as hell. So I agree with Chaos, who says Journey is boring. Yeah, no, absolutely no disrespect to anyone who likes it. Just personally, I am not seeing what you're seeing in the game. I find the game absolutely dreadfully mind-numbingly dull. I also don't think it's aesthetically very attractive. It has a very simplistic, monochromatic look to it. Most of the individual levels or scenes in it are predominantly one color, like gold or pink or blue, which is not a bad choice. It's just, to me, it's garish and muddy looking most of the time, especially when it tries to do anything atmospheric, like with dust clouds or sand clouds or murkiness in general. It instead of becoming dark and spooky and atmospheric, it just becomes kind of muddy and ugly to me. I found it very similar to Zelda Breath of the Wild, except that in Journey there's only one place to go, which is not a problem. That's just what kind of game it is. Zelda Breath of the Wild is an open world game. You start in the middle of the map and you can go anywhere. In Journey, you start at one end of the map and you go to the other end of it. There's only one way to go. It's a linear game, and that's perfectly fine. I like me some linear games. But unlike Breath of the Wild, there is almost nothing to actually do on your titular journey. I played the game for almost an hour, and you know what specifically reminded me of Breath of the Wild? It's another game where the main character is slow. Oh my god, the character is so frustratingly slow. Oh man. Oh, go faster. It's really frustrating in both games. The protagonists in both games just move too slow compared to the sheer size of the world they need to hoof it across. It's really, really frustrating seeing a landmark. It's like, oh, there's something, because between me and the something, there's just sand. You point the control stick, and it just takes forever to get there. So what do you actually do in the game? Well, you can make you can emit a pulse of energy. You hold down the button and your character just farts or something, it just releases their ki. Just clenches their butt really tight until they release a cloud of ki. And if you do this next to a waving banner or flag ribbon thing, it will do something. Usually it will just pick you up and put you where you need to go. Or it will release a little flying carpet monster that will pick you up and put you where you need to go. Or it will extend a bridge that leads to where you need to go. And that is about it. That is the entire game. You walk in a direction until you find something, and if you walk in any other direction, the game will stop you. So you can really only... luckily, the signposting is fine. So there's almost never going to be a point where you accidentally wander off out into the middle of the desert. The game will stop you and push you back. It's always pretty clear what... the landmarks are always clear. This is the next point of interest to go to. So you get over there. The other mechanic is you can jump. But your jump needs to recharge, and you recharge your jump by key farting near a cloud of moth-like ribbon paper things. They'll restore it. You have a scarf, and your scarf lights up, and when it lights up, you can jump. So, but once you've exhausted your jump power, you can't jump again until you recharge it by key farting at some ribbon monster thing that's wandering around somewhere. Now, there are little collectibles around that if you pick them up, they will extend the length of your scarf, which in turn will extend the length of your jump. But in the first hour of the game, I never saw anywhere that matters, because so far as I've seen in the first half of the game, you can navigate the whole thing with the shortest scarf. You don't need it. I mean, I guess being longer makes it more convenient, but it doesn't really incentivize you to go out of your way to pick up the glowy bits that extend your scarf, especially since it takes so gosh darn long to walk over there. It also does something really, really, really weird to me, in that in one of the first areas I was in, there were like 4 flappy ribbon banner things that you just walk to each one and do your key fart. And I walk and I key fart at 1, 2, 3. I'm walking to the 4th, and there's an NPC over there and does its own key fart. I'm like, okay, thanks NPC for taking away the one thing I can actually do in the game. And then I found another NPC in the next area, and I think the NPCs are actually supposed to be other players playing the game, which is really annoying, because it took me a while to figure out, but when there's another player around, you know how in shooters, one side or the other of the screen will light up red to indicate which direction you're being shot from? Journey has a similar thing where one side of the screen or the other is glowing blindingly white, and it took me a while to figure out what the hell that was. It's an indicator of where another player is. I don't care. And I can't find an option to turn that off. So whenever there's another player, I just sit down and pause the game for a while and just let them go on ahead, so that they don't spoil what very little there is to actually spoil in the game. So I left off at a really irritating part, and irritating not because it's difficult, but because it's just ungodly slow. Hey, you remember the water temple in Ocarina of Time? This is worse. By tens, by factor of 10 at least. You're in a large room with a central pillar, and you need to fill it with water to work your way towards the top. And you do that by key farting near the appropriate thing that will launch you upwards to a platform that will raise the water, rinse and repeat. And a lot of it is riding a big floppy carpet monster that slowly circles the entire area till you get to the one bit. That's where I shut it off. I wish I saw what everyone else sees in this game, but oh my god, it is so boring to me. I'm glad other people like it, but whew, glad it was free. So, Chaos says, Journey is boring. Zelda is only boring if you make it that way. There's no shortage of things to do in Breath of the Wild. Yeah, that was my point. In Breath of the Wild, while Link is slow, and Hyrule is big, it is at least littered with things to do and see. Now, your mileage may vary as far as how irritated you get on the sheer repetition of what there is to do in the world. Like, I'm really tired of that damn Circle of Stones puzzle. I mean, I forget, I only opened like 3 areas in the game, and I saw the same puzzle like 15 times. I think there's like 15 or 16 major areas of the game. And that same damn... I actually took a few hours to calculate how many times that damn puzzle shows up in the game. There's 900 Koroks, and I think the Circle of Stones puzzle, I think there's something like 72 of them. It's nearly a tenth of is exactly the same puzzle. Oh my god. Chaos says, I think Link was slow intentionally to increase the sense of scale. Perhaps. That doesn't work for me, though. It just makes Link frustratingly slow. And it makes it just really frustrating to play. I mean, luckily you do get a horse a couple hours into the game, unless you're speedrunning, then faster. But the horse comes with its own own frustrations. I have a video series called Bad Breath of the Wild, which details my frustrations with the game, if anyone's interested in the bits that stuck out to me as aggravating. Now, I say Journey is boring. Again, to me, my personal opinion. To me, Journey is boring. To me, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is not boring. I want to make that clear. I don't think Breath of the Wild is boring. I just think it's kind of frustrating in a lot of ways. Overall, I think Breath of the Wild is a great game, but it's a great game that I just can't work up the interest and initiative to start playing. It's interesting because once I start playing Breath of the Wild, I'm fine. It's just getting to the point where I'm like, alright, let's play Breath of the Wild. Because every time I think about going back to Breath of the Wild, I'm like, you know, Link is slow, and the horse has problems, and it rains all the goddamn time. And, you know, so I'm like, I don't wanna. And the music is... The overworld music, at least, the individual town music I like, but the overworld music is not to my taste. The aesthetic design of all of the damn dungeons and shrines is just not grooving with me. I don't find the combat very fun. Once I get to a town and it actually plays like a typical Zelda game where I talk to people and go on little quests for them, I love that stuff. And I do love the sense of adventure and exploring the wild and stuff like that, but there are just too many things in the game that just aggravate me. Which means, interestingly, that I'm very much looking forward to Breath of the Wild 2, because I'm really interested to see if Breath of the Wild 2 fixes the things that I found frustrating, or doubles down on them because those were the things other people really liked about the game. You know? So I'm really interested to see how Breath of the Wild 2 turns out and what my reaction to it's going to be. Hello, Siberian Tiger. I haven't seen you around in a while. Chaos says that was not an NPC. It was probably another player. Yeah, right. At first, I was like, well, there's an NPC that's... It was pretty clear that this was controlled by another person. I was like, that makes me want to pull my internet cable. It really does. It feels really invasive to me. I don't like it. It makes me genuinely uncomfortable. It feels like... To me, it feels like if I turned around and someone was, like, staring in my window. Like, they're not in my house. I don't own the property outside my window, but that would still make me feel really uncomfy. Tiger says, couldn't get into Breath of the Wild. Majora's Mask is still my one and only Zelda game I really liked. Majora's Mask would actually be my favorite. if it didn't, in my opinion, just really lose steam in the back half, I love Majora's Mask. But I'm one of those odd people who just doesn't like the final dungeon. Didn't click for me. And I felt the final encounter was kind of a letdown. Maybe it'd be more interesting if I didn't have the Uber Zelda mask that just completely kicks the crap out of Majora. That was kind of it's a good game. I felt that it just lost steam in the back half. Let's see. Ignore the Koroks if you want. Yeah, but if you do, then that you've got a lot of empty space that you're hoofing it across with nothing to do. Or, well, with little to do. You know. Chaos says gliding and horses are much faster. That's very true. You can't always glide, you can't always horse, and those things... I talk about this in my Bad Breath of the Wild video, but really, if they just let Link run just a little bit faster, it'd have been fine. He's just a skosh too slow. I think the analogy I used in my video was when you're stuck behind, when you're driving. Remember when we actually went outside and drove our cars? When you're driving and you're stuck behind a driver going like 38 and a 40, yeah, they're only going 2 miles an hour under the speed limit, but oh my god, it's so frustrating. Go faster. To me, that's what it's like. Also, Link's pathetic stamina bar, where initially anyway, where he can only sprint for 3 seconds before he's... Oh god, it's just... Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make it a bad game. It doesn't destroy the game for me. It's just frustrating as hell. Maybe I just shouldn't be impatient. Let's see. Tiger says it's one of those games where a series of small things really get in the way. Yeah, that's what it is for me. Again, it's a game I like, and I played probably 30 some hours of it. Never beat it. I really enjoyed a lot of it. I mean, I keep harping on stuff that irritates me, but I remember I did the charity stream 2 years ago where we played Zelda the entire time, and towards the end, I was hiking up a mountain, and gosh darn it, my brain is immediately wants to switch about the annoyance of the cold mountain and how you have to deal with that. But I was hiking up a mountain, and I look over to my left, I'm like, is that a dragon? Is that a dragon just circling the mountain? So I hike over there and climb up, and by God, it's a damn dragon circling the mountain, and who needs me to shoot him in the butt with a bow and arrow? And it's a whole thing. It's great. And the game is chock full of absolutely lovely, wonderful moments just like that. One thing I will give the game, I love, absolutely adore the land of Hyrule. I think it is one of the most realistically lived in feeling worlds in a video game I've ever felt. Hyrule feels like an actual place where people live, and there's a lot of things that contribute to this. Number one, there are constantly people just out doing their own damn thing. You'll be running along, you'll be out, lifting up rocks to find Koroks and stuff like that, and you'll constantly just see people walking around, sometimes fighting monsters, sometimes just out for a walk, sometimes on horseback, and they wave at you and say hey. Despite what Nintendo made it look like in their various presentations before the game released, Hyrule is not an empty void, an empty land devoid of life. There are lots of little towns and establishments and gathering ups. People live there, and it feels like that. Another thing is, no matter where you are in Hyrule, you can always see at least one prominent landmark, whether that be Mount Lianru or Mount Doom, or not Mount Doom. What's the Goron Mountain? It's not Mount. I'm pretty sure it's not Mount Doom. It's the Fire Mountain or Hyrule Castle or something. But no matter where you are in Hyrule, you always have a good, even not looking at the map, you always have a really good idea of where you are in relation to other things because you're always in eyesight of some major landmark. Death Mountain, thank you, thank you, Chaos. It's Mount Doom. Also, there is a wonderful variety of locales and biomes. There's rolling hills, there's steep craggy mountains, there's thick forests, there's swampy areas, there's big watery areas, there's a arid sandy desert, there's the volcano place where the Gorons live. It is an absolutely wonderful video game world, and I love it. I just wish locomoting across it wasn't chock full of so many goddamn frustrations. You know, another thing I love the fact that your horses, mostly, will just follow the path if you're not jerking on the control stick. If you giddy up your horse will mostly follow the path that you're on. You remember when Aonuma or someone was like, yeah, horses don't run into trees? For the most part, they don't. Not if you leave them to their own devices. And it's really nice just getting on horseback and getting your horse running and just looking around and going, gosh, this is a nifty, nifty place. Well done, Nintendo. So there's a lot about the game that I really, 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 really like. But there's a lot of little itty bitty things that just drive me up the damn wall. So, really interested to see to see what Nintendo does with Breath of the Wild 2, and if it makes it more accessible for me, or completely puts me off. It'd be interesting. So, in other words, Journey is boring. That's what I was trying to get at there. Get Listerine to sponsor my next bad Breath of the Wild videos? Sure. Cyber Tiger says, I hate when games have like a 3-second running stamina or something like that. Like, this dude can jog indefinitely, but God help him if he has to go faster for longer. Yeah, I kind of love the fact that, I don't love the fact, but it is, when you just take a step back and look at what this really means. Link cannot swim, cannot float, cannot doggy paddle for like more than 60 seconds, or he will drown in 4 feet of water. It is amazing. This guy can go at a light jog forever, but Link's just not a sprinter. Let's put it that way. I'll cut him some slack on his Spider-Man skills. You know, he can't Spider-Man forever, but oh my god, swim across a shallow pond and he just drowns. It's like, wow. No wonder Hyrule lost the last time it went up against Ganon if you were leading the charge. Can you imagine? The entire Hyrule army is about to storm Castle Ganon, or well, Hyrule Castle where Ganon is squatting, and Link is out there. All right, for freedom, for Zelda, for whatever. Charge! 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Oh God! Okay, everybody, hang on just a minute. Let me just. All right. Charge! Wait. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, we should have got a little bit closer before we started charging. Don't know. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. The Zora armor, when upgraded, will allow him to swim much faster and farther. Sure it will. Hours and hours and hours into the game. There are a lot of things that will mitigate some of these issues later in the game, like the motorcycle if you want to pay an extra $20. Like the full set of climbing gear. That will negate. Well, makes Link climb faster, so it increases his speed from intolerably slow to just slow, which is better, you know. But I mean, a lot of times I'll be in that game and I'll look at a mountain and be like, I bet there's something up there. That Aurora Borealis tells me that there's something up there. But I really don't want to climb up there. Yeah, I don't want to take an hour to climb all the way up there. It's a pain in the butt. Jordan says this version of Link would not survive a second in Wind Waker. Tiger says, I love how you go on a rant with Breath of the Wild for the small things. I'm the same way with Doom Eternal. Love the game, but small little things I can go on about. Oh, yeah. I've not played Doom Eternal yet, and probably won't until for another year, but I did like 2016 quite a lot, so... So, moving on. While we're complaining about things, so Monster Hunter World Iceborne just included a Master Ranked Kulve Taroth fight. And back in high rank, before the Iceborne expansion, Kulve Taroth was a siege quest, which meant it was long-winded and boring, and almost impossible to do solo if you're a casual like me. Because when I attempt siege quests like Kulve Taroth or Safi Jiva, I spend the entire time limit smacking the hell out of the monster, and then the monster just leaves after 20 minutes, because they just don't seem very impressed. And I don't know what more I can do. I mean, even going back to the Kulve Taroth siege in high rank, using my end game master rank gear, I still can't get her to budge. Spend the entire time just wailing on her. And she's just like, someone here? Guess not. And wanders off. So frustrating. Chaos says, Rivali's Gale makes climbing so much easier. Yes, it certainly would. When you get it. Hours and hours, and depending on which direction you go, more hours and hours into the game. My point is the default, not that I don't mind games where the character starts off weak. I just don't like it when the defaults are intolerably slow. Like Samus in the Metroid game starts out without her space jump and her morph ball and her other stuff, but she's not frustrating to move around the screen, even though she lacks a lot of her mobility options, like the space jump, like the spider ball, like the morph ball, like the bomb jump, like the grappling beam. You don't have all that. Your mobility is limited. But her default is not frustrating. That's my problem, is Link's default, and he does improve, but his default is always just too slow for me. I mean, I am in the extreme minority on that one, obviously. Most people do not seem to have a problem. Much like most people genuinely do not seem to have a problem with what I consider probably among the absolute worst video game controllers ever to me. I think these are just shockingly bad. They're grossly uncomfortable. I hate these. Hate them. Absolutely cannot stand these. Refuse to use them. And I was shocked because I had not heard anybody with that opinion. Not a single person who shared that opinion when I first wrapped my grubby little mitts around these. So, again, I'm in the minority on that one. So, and that's alright. It's a damn shame, because I'd rather like things than not like them, but, yeah. Pro Controller for the win, absolutely! It's disgustingly overpriced, but luckily I got it for a Christmas present, so that wasn't a problem. Tiger says on Doom Eternal there's a loop now where chainsaw gives you ammo, glory kill for health, and the fire belch thing for armor. Break it, look, and you're up Crap Creek. Okay. Yeah, I've heard some people say they like that. I've heard some people say they don't like that. In the original game, it was glory kills would give you health, and then chainsaw would just dump ammo, and then you'd find armor all over the place. Anyway, Kulve Taroth. So Master Rank Kulve Taroth came out, and it's more geared for it's not a siege quest, an actual go kill Kulve Taroth. I can't do it. I tried 4 times, and Kulve Taroth always would just up and leave after about 7-8 minutes. It wasn't a matter of me getting killed. It wasn't a matter of me playing poorly to the point where I wasn't doing any damage. It makes me feel like I'm just completely missing something. And I've seen other people on YouTube solo to Kulve Taroth, and I'm looking at them, God, well, is the only way to beat her solo to play that good? 'Cause I'm not that good. I mean, I feel I'm playing adequately and I'm doing a respectable amount of damage, but all 4 tries, after only 7 or 8 minutes, she gave up and left. And that's super frustrating in a game that has really long load times. Like when you want to start the quest, you select the quest out of the quest book. It takes about 30 to 40 seconds before you can start the loading screen to load into the quest. Luckily, you can fill that time with going into your equipment box and, re-upping your loadout, eating a meal at the canteen to get your buffs on. Then once you're done with that, you wait another couple seconds, like, okay, now you can load in the quest. So you hit the big trackpad button on the controller, and it's a good solid minute load to get into the Kulve Taroth quest. And for some reason, Kulve Taroth is a good 20-second walk from the camp where you start. So it takes about 30-some seconds to get to the point where you can load. It takes another minute to load into the quest, and it takes another 20 seconds to run all the way down to where Kulve Taroth is. And then you start beating on her face for 7 minutes, and then she just walks away, and you fail the quest, and it takes another minute to load back out to the town so that you can spend another 30 seconds to get to the point where you can wait another minute for it to load, where you can take a 20-minute walk to where Kulve Taroth is again, to smack her in the face over and over and over, only to have her give up and leave again. That is really frustrating. If it was a matter of me just failing, like she was just grinding my ass into paste because she's more powerful than I am or quicker or something like that, I'd be like, well, I suck. you know? But it's frustrating because it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything wrong. It feels like I'm completely missing something. It feels similar to Safijiva, where if I'm understanding the mechanic, you have to bust parts to drain her energy. I'm like, okay, tough to do by yourself. So I'd go in there and I would concentrate on one bit for the entire 20 minutes and it would never break. It makes me feel like my copy of the game is somehow broken or I'm just completely missing something. Which is a shame because their armors are really cool and I want them. Oh well. Such is life. Matthew says, I know we disagree on this, but Monster Hunter is a co-op focused game, balanced and tuned for more than one person. Well, it's both. It is balanced and tuned for 1 to 4 players. However, the siege quests, Kulve Taroth and Safi'jiiva, are meant to be played. They can be soloed, but they are meant to be played with multiple people. That is true. The problem is you should be able to solo them, and you can. I've seen people do it. I don't understand why I can't. Again, if it was a matter of me sucking, I would accept that, you know? But it doesn't feel like it's my poor performance. I feel like I'm performing fine. Lots of guys have said that. But obviously I'm not, because she gets bored and leaves after 7 minutes. We're still talking about Monster Hunter, honest. Oh well. Tiger says, don't like the Joy-Con, have a habit of hugging the controller with my palms, so I have a really bad bend in my thumb get on the analog stick, right? Matthew says, by the sound of it, you're not meeting the wrong meeting, but yeah, you're not meeting the DPS requirement to force the next phase. That's exactly what I imagine it is, that there's a damage check. You have to do a certain amount of damage in a certain amount of time in order to get the fight to proceed. Right, I get that. The problem is the way Monster Hunter works is there's no timer, and there's an overall quest clock, but there's no indication of how much damage you're doing, how much damage you need to do, and how quickly you need to do that. So while obviously I'm not meeting the damage check, I have no idea if I'm just barely missing it and just doing a skosh better would be all I need, or if I'm like missing it by a mile. So I don't know if I should beat my head against the wall. I mean, if I missed it by like 3 seconds, I'd be like, oh, shoot. Just one more try. I know I can do this. It's just 3 seconds. That's, yeah, you know, just whiff one less time or something like that. But if I was like, only doing like 50-60% of the damage I needed to get her to move on to the next phase, I could be like, okay, I obviously just do not have the skill to do this. And again, I'm using end game level equipment here. I don't know how I could be doing much better unless unless they really expect you to be just competition level competent at Monster Hunter, and I'm not. I've beaten all the monsters except Kulve Taroth, and except all the siege monsters, Behemoth, Kulve Taroth, and Safi'jiiva. Beat all of them. I think the only not to toot my own horn, but I think the only fight I ever the only quest I ever failed was my first encounter with Kieran, the lightning horse. The rest of them, I'm a decent Monster Hunter player. I only card about a third of the time. Played Monster Hunter a lot on the charity event last time. Only carded 3 times. Once to Savage Devil Joe, once to Teostra, and once to Velkhana, and 2 of those were really questionable. But yeah, I mean that is exactly what it sounds like. I'm not meeting the damage check to move the fight forward, but where that check is invisible by function of the way the game works. I mean, I don't expect them to change the way the game works. I just think I don't like the mechanic. I don't just let me beat on the monster. It's super frustrating, especially if it was like Super Meat Boy and I could just try it again, it would be one thing. But since it's like you have 7 or 8 minutes apparently to do a certain amount of damage, which you don't know how much that is or how much damage you're doing, unless you can look at the little numbers and add them up in your head. But I don't know what to add them up to, and I don't know how soon I need them to get to that number. I don't like that mechanic. I don't think it helps. I don't think it makes a better experience. I think it just makes it needlessly frustrating. So, oh well. So I saw Doctor Strangelove this week, and I think I watched it yesterday. I watched it on Friday. So I got up. We had a all hands teleconference meeting. Talking about you're all doing great, and we're sorry that everything sucks, and we hope things don't suck forever. But we want to know that we're here for you. If not monetarily, we're in spirit. One of those kind of things. And I thought to myself, you know what? I don't actually have. I'll do my hours for today, but I don't have to do them now. So I watched Doctor Strangelove. I'll work later today. I don't need to do it in the morning or the afternoon. You can't fight in here. This is the war room. That's right. That's from Doctor Strangelove. So Doctor Strangelove. Never seen it before. My first time watching it. It's definitely the most watchable Kubrick film I've ever seen. I have not liked any of the Kubrick films I've seen. This one I thought was watchable. I think it is wildly uneven, and I think the movie is a little bit too in love with its own jokes and characters, whether the jokes and characters work or not. There are some jokes that, I will say, what works phenomenally well. But it's a 90-minute movie that feels like it should really only be, or a 95-minute movie that feels like it's about 15 minutes too long, because there are a lot of scenes that just drag. Some of them are genuinely really funny, but they just go on too long. Some are genuinely not funny, and they still go on too long. Again, what works great, but man, the movie is a bit too self-indulgent for my taste. A lot of funny stuff in it. Interestingly, the character I liked least, Dr. Strangelove himself, who's barely in the movie, has 2 scenes, I think. You see him in the background a couple of times. He has one short scene towards the end of the movie, in the back half, and then he has one longer scene at the very end. And they're both terrible. I don't like that character at all. I think I get what they were going for, but a lot of the jokes I just didn't find very funny. Like Doctor Strangelove's obviously one of those Operation Paperclip Nazis who was brought into the U.S. to take advantage of his brain. And he's a dude in a wheelchair, and he's got a real issue controlling himself from Sieg Heiling all over the place. I don't know. I just felt that joke was kind of annoying. Kudos to Peter Sellers for going for it. Hell, kudos to George C. Scott for just completely going for it. There's another joke in the movie where George C. Scott's character is constantly just jamming gum into his mouth, which is a detail you might not even notice, and it never amounts to anything, and it doesn't go anywhere, and it's never taken to an absurd extreme. It's treated more like a continuity error, where in every single shot he's stuffing another stick of gum in his mouth. I mean, that alone doesn't make the movie bad, but it's that kind of a thing. I would recommend checking it out. It's certainly a big enough cultural touchstone that you'll want to see it just to know what the movie is. James Earl Jones is in it. Cool. And there is some genuinely funny stuff in it. But yeah, I found it to be a very uneven film, and that was not paced very well. Just dragged a bit in places. So there's my incredibly professional opinion of an old movie. So there you go. All right, it's 8 o'clock. That's it for tonight. Join me tomorrow at 12 Pacific Standard Time, and we'll play a little Enslaved Odyssey to the West, which should have got sequels to the North, East, and South. You could have done that. That would have been great. Oh no. Journey Odyssey, or Enslaved Odyssey to the West didn't get a sequel. Does that mean it sucks? It must suck, because it would have got a sequel otherwise, would it not? Well, join me tomorrow at noon PST, and we will see. Till then, friends, take care. Bye-bye.